Deep beneath the bombed-out streets of Berlin, a dictator faced his end. Adolf Hitler, the man who had plunged the world into war, chose suicide over surrender. But what drove him to this desperate act? What happened in those final days and hours inside his underground bunker? In this essay, we will delve into the shocking truth behind Hitler's suicide. We will uncover the events that led to his downfall and explore the psychological torment that consumed his final days. Join us as we unravel one of history's most infamous events. By April 1945, the tide of World War II had turned decisively against Hitler's Germany. Allied forces were closing in on Berlin from both east and west, and the once mighty German army was in ruins. The dream of a thousand-year Reich lay shattered, and Hitler's grip on power was slipping away. The German people, exhausted by years of war and propaganda, were beginning to lose faith in their leader. Hitler's inner circle, once composed of loyal followers, was now riddled with doubt and fear. The writing was on the wall. The Third Reich was on the verge of collapse. Three key events in April 1945 made it clear to Hitler that defeat was inevitable. First, on April 12th, President Franklin D. Roosevelt died. Hitler, believing Roosevelt to be his most formidable enemy, saw this as a sign that fate was on his side. However, his hope was short-lived. Second, the Red Army launched a massive offensive on Berlin on April 16th. Soviet troops stormed the city, fighting street by street, inching ever closer to Hitler's bunker. The sound of artillery fire and the screams of dying men filled the air, a constant reminder of Germany's impending doom. Finally, on April 28th, Hitler learned of the execution of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini. Mussolini, once a close ally, had been captured and killed by Italian partisans. This news shattered any remaining illusions Hitler may have had about escaping his fate. As the Allied noose tightened, Hitler retreated to his underground bunker, a concrete tomb buried deep beneath the Chancellery Gardens. Here, surrounded by his closest followers, he spent his final days in a state of increasing despair and delusion. The air was thick with tension and fear. Hitler, once a charismatic leader, was now a shadow of his former self. He paced back and forth, ranting about betrayal and treachery, his voice hoarse with rage and despair. His physical health was also deteriorating rapidly. He was a gaunt and trembling figure, his body racked by tremors and fatigue. Section 5. The Suicide of Adolf Hitler, a Gruesome End. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet shells rained down on Berlin, Hitler made the final, irreversible decision to end his own life. He penned a last will and testament, blaming the Jews for the war and urging his followers to continue the fight. Then, in the early afternoon, he retreated to his private study with his new wife, Eva Braun. There, with the sound of gunfire echoing in the distance, Hitler shot himself in the head. Eva Braun took a cyanide capsule. Their bodies were carried outside to the Chancellery Gardens, doused in gasoline, and set ablaze as a final act of defiance against the encroaching enemy. Section 6. The world reacts: relief and uncertainty. News of Hitler's death spread quickly, sparking a mixture of relief and uncertainty across the globe. For many, it signaled the end of a nightmare, the downfall of a tyrant who had plunged the world into darkness. Celebrations erupted in the streets of Allied nations as people rejoiced at the news of the dictator's demise. However, the joy was tempered with a sense of unease. The war in Europe was not yet over, and many feared that Hitler's death might only prolong the fighting. Others worried about the future of Germany and the challenges of rebuilding a nation shattered by years of war and division. Section 7. The legacy of Hitler's actions. Hitler's suicide marked the end of his life, but the legacy of his actions would continue to haunt the world for generations to come. The Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews, stood as a chilling testament to the horrors of Nazi ideology. The world was left to grapple with the enormity of his crimes and the devastating consequences of his hateful ideology. The war had left millions dead, countless cities in ruins, and a deep scar across the face of Europe. Section 8. Never forget. The importance of remembering. Today, more than 7 decades after his death, it is more important than ever to remember the lessons of the Holocaust and the dangers of unchecked hatred and intolerance. We must never forget the victims, the survivors, and the brave individuals who fought against Nazi tyranny. By studying history, by understanding the factors that led to the rise of Nazism, we can work to prevent such atrocities from happening again. We must be vigilant in our defense of human rights and stand up against all forms of bigotry and discrimination. Section 9. Join the conversation, share your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the events leading up to Hitler's suicide? How do you think his death impacted the course of history? Share your perspective in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating historical content. Let's keep the conversation going.